admission registers and sharing information with the local authority. My name is Adam Luke, and I head up the School Attendance Policy and Strategy team at the Department for Education. And I'm going to walk us through the statutory data returns that have to be made to local authorities in line with the School Attendance Pupil Registration England Regulations 2024. I'm not going to touch in this session on the sharing of daily data from state-funded schools to the department and local authorities through the one system. But if you need more information on that, it can be found on gov.uk if you search Share Your Attendance Data. You can also find webinars on the DFE YouTube channel that cover that specifically. Perfect. Let's make a start. Next slide, please. Perfect. We'll start then with the new pupil return. This one in itself is pretty self-explanatory, but when a pupil's name is added to the admission register or the school roll, all schools and all of the things I'll talk about in this session cover all schools, including independent schools, must make a new pupil return to the local authority in accordance with Regulation 13(1) to 3 of the School Attendance Pupil Registration England Regulations 2024. Schools do not have to provide information to the local authority when a pupil has been added during a standard transition period. So, for example, where a pupil is added to the secondary school admission register at the beginning of year 7, unless your local authority has asked for that, and you'll know if they have in their processes. But all other additions to the register, this needs to be made. I just wanted to touch for a moment on this idea of guest pupil, and it comes up a little bit when we are out and about in the country. But there's no such thing in school admission or pupil registration law as a guest pupil, but there is a particular enrolment status in software provider systems. It is used in the software to cover people who are accessing things at school that aren't a pupil, but anybody who is receiving an education at the school need to be added to the school admission register. That's in line with the definition of a pupil, which is set out in Section 3 of the Education Act 1996. The only exceptions to that are people over the age of 19 where further education is provided, or somebody who's receiving a part-time education that is not suitable for a pupil of compulsory school age. So somebody who is coming into school for another reason to take part in a class after school or something like that. And that is where the enrolment status is used. Next slide, please. The second one is deletion returns, and again this one is pretty self-explanatory, and it is the mirror image of informing the local authority when a pupil is added to the roll. This is taking off a pupil when they are deleted from the roll. So a pupil's name can only be deleted, as you should know, in line with the grounds prescribed in regulations. And from academic year 24-25, that is in line with Regulation 9 of the new School Attendance Pupil Registration England Regulations 2024. Anytime one of those situations that are set out in the grounds for deletion is met, then the pupil's name must be deleted. So it's not something that is you can delete in those circumstances. The law is really clear. If one of those scenarios is met, then you must take that child off the school roll and inform the local authority. So when the pupil's name is deleted, all schools, again, including independent schools, schools of all types, must make this deletion return to the local authority as soon as possible, but no later than 5 days after the deletion, in accordance with Regulation 13(4) to 6. The information that schools need to provide set out here on the slide, but that is the full name, the address, the full name and address of any pupil any parent that the pupil normally lives with, at least one telephone number by which the parent the pupil normally lives with can be contacted, and where you know it, the pupil's future address, the full name and address of the parent the pupil is going to be living with, and the date the pupil will start living there. And again, if you know it, the name of the pupil's other school where they will begin to attend and the date when they will begin to attend, if you know it. And then, of course, the reason which one of those grounds in Regulation 9 has been met and the reason you're taking them off the school roll. When a pupil is being deleted similarly to when they're being added during a standard transition. So using that same example as I used before, in terms of when they're coming off the school roll at the end of the secondary school phase, you don't need to inform the local authority unless, again, they've asked for that information, and you'll know if they've asked for that in their regular contact with you. Can I just point out why we're talking about deletion returns? Something I mentioned in the session, and if you want more information, please do look on the DFE YouTube channel for the session on the admission register more generally. But I mentioned it in that session. A pupil's name cannot be deleted from the admission register retrospectively. The admission register is an accurate record, needs to be an accurate record of who is a registered pupil at any given time, so at this moment in time. So once a pupil has been added to the register, that pupil is a registered pupil, and they can only be deleted from the register when one of the grounds has been met, and that happens at the point at which the ground has been met. It can't be that you then backdate that deletion if, for example, you're doing reasonable inquiries for a suspected case of a child missing education with the local authority, and you find that they'd started a local authority another school 3 weeks ago. You can't then backdate the deletion to that point. It's at the point at which that ground became clear, which is today after you finish your joint reasonable inquiries. Next slide, please. The third type of return then is an attendance return. All schools must make an attendance return to the local authority in line with Regulation 13.7 to 8 of the School Attendance Pupil Registration Regulations 2024. That doesn't apply. The only case where that doesn't apply is to pupils who are boarders, but all of the pupils, if they fail to attend school regularly, and that includes absences that are classified as authorised absences for the purposes of statistics, unauthorised absence, and not a possible attendance. But it doesn't include pupils who are attending sessions of an approved educational activity. So K code, V code, P code, W code, or B code. That is an educational activity provided by the local authority is K. A visit or trip organised by and supervised by the school, which is a B. An approved sporting activity, which is P. Work experience, which is W, or an approved education activity arranged by the school, which is B, or where they're dual registered, so code D. So apart from those scenarios, the local authority must be informed if a child is attending irregularly for all the other absence codes. The second area is absent for a continuous period of at least 10 school days where the absence is unauthorised in statistical terms, so codes G, N, O and U. Not a holiday not granted by the school, code G. The reason hasn't yet been established, code N. Absent in other unauthorised circumstances, which is O. And absent because they'd arrived after the register closed, code U. And it's just worth pointing out on all of these attendance returns, your local authority will set out how they want to receive this information and when and the frequency and that sort of thing. So if in doubt about that and you're not sure whether there are changes to that under the new registration regulations or whether you're sticking to the processes that your local authority currently uses, please do speak to the school attendance support team at your local authority. And they'll tell you how they want to receive this information and when. Can I just also point out why we're talking about the codes classified as unauthorised statistically? Code N, many of you should know this, it's not a change in the new regulations, but it is worth pointing out. Code N must not be left on a pupil's record indefinitely. If you have found out, obviously, the reason for absence after the session, you can go back and correct that and record that change in the register. But if after a period of 5 days you haven't managed to ascertain a reason or you don't believe the reason that you're given, then the absence needs to be changed to code O for other unauthorised reasons. It's also just worth pointing out that the Working Together to Improve School Attendance guidance also expects schools where you know a child has a social worker or a youth offending officer and they have an unexplained absence So you were expecting them in school on a given day and they didn't turn up, and you haven't been able to find out what the reason for absence is, it expects that you inform the social worker or the youth offending officer, just so they can check whether they need to do anything in terms of safeguarding checks to make sure that that child is okay. If you had expected them in and you can't now, you don't have them in and you can't reach them. The final one, then moving on to the next slide, the final one is a sickness return, and this is the only one of these returns that is new in the new regulations. All of the others were covered in the 2006 Pupil Registration Regulations, so you should be familiar in doing them. There are tweaks to how they happen in the wording, and as I say, check with your local authority if you want more information. But the sickness return is a new one. All schools must make a sickness return to their local authority in accordance with Regulation 13.9 to 11 of the School Attendance Pupil Registration Regulations 2024. Only one sickness return needs to be made for each continuous period of sickness in a year. So the reasons where this would happen is where the pupil is recorded in the attendance register as using code I for illness, and they've had 15 sessions, 15 days of illness-related absence. A return needs to be made to the local authority. The other reason is where a child, you have a child of compulsory school age who you know is going, or you suspect is going to miss 15 days, either consecutively or cumulatively because of illness, then you inform the local authority as well. And the purpose of that is to make sure that the local authority can have a conversation with you if needed about whether there is any need for alternative provision, whether that is provided at school or tweaks needed at school to provide that, or whether the Section 19 duty needs to be fulfilled at the local authority. What it isn't is a sort of handing over of a case of sickness-related absence to the local authority and saying, I as a school don't have to do anything anymore. It is to facilitate that conversation. So it doesn't mean that a Section 19 duty is immediately enacted after 15 days. It may be that that child can be supported in school and the local authority will be content with that, but it allows a conversation to happen between yourself and the local authority to see whether something does need to be tweaked in school or whether something more widely needs to be put in place under the Section 19 duty. Just before we finish then, I wanted just to touch on one more thing. Could we move on to the next one, Vicky? That lovely, thank you. The final thing I just wanted to touch on was access to registers. So under the old regulations, the 2006 regulations, certain types of school had to make their admission and attendance registers available to authorised officers, and that is the local authority, the Secretary of State where needed, and an inspector from Ofsted. Under the new regulations, in accordance with Regulation 12 of the 2024 regulations, that provision covers all schools. So it's really simple to have in mind. It just means that from the beginning of the new school year, if a local authority officer, the Secretary of State or an officer of the Secretary of State or somebody from Ofsted needs to access that register data for the purposes of their functions, then they are able to do so. They should ask obviously before and let you know that they come in and want to see that information before. But if they need to take a look at that information, or they need to take an extract from that information to fulfill those functions. So, for example, where the local authority needs a statement of that child's attendance to take forward a prosecution, or whether they need to access the register coding to have a look at what the patterns of attendance have been for a child who's suspected of missing education, or whether an Ofsted inspector has a line of inquiry around attendance and want to see how a child's attendance is being recorded as part of a routine inspection, then they can do so, and they can take a physical extract, so they can ask for a printout of that, or they can take a digital extract and ask you to send them some information from that, and you're able to provide that information, of course. Perfect. We'll finish there then. Thank you very much for your patience in listening to the session today. If you need any more information on how the admission register works, how the attendance register works and how these returns work. It's set out in detail in the school attendance guidance, the Working Together to Improve School Attendance guidance. There are more detailed webinars on the DFE YouTube channel on the attendance and admission registers specifically. And of course, you should familiarise yourselves with the regulations themselves, which can be found on legislation.gov.uk, and you're searching for the School Attendance Pupil Registration Regulations 2024. Thank you very much for your attention and for everything that you are continuing to do on school attendance and pupil registration. Thank you.